Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of History with Sai. Now, in the last episode about the Akkadian Empire, we were introduced to the larger-than-life figure of Sargon the Great. Though he seemed to have had little problem conquering vast territories across the ancient Near East, keeping them all under his control proved to be a much more difficult task. He faced constant revolts, especially towards the end of his reign. By the time his son and successor Rimush came to the throne in 2278 BCE, Sargon's empire was burning. It was up to Rimush to not only reclaim the territory that had recently seceded, but to also keep it together and allow it to prosper. Sargon the Great actually had several sons. In order of their birth, they were Manishtushu, Rimush, Ibarum, and Abiash Takal. He also had a daughter, Enheduanna, who would go on to become a priestess and a great poet of the goddess Ishtar. For reasons unknown, Sargon chose his second son, Rimush, to succeed him. Perhaps it was because he knew that Rimush had what it took to keep his empire together after he was gone. In this task, Rimush seems to have been successful, though not without resorting to extreme force and cruelty. As soon as he ascended the throne, Rimush faced revolts from several cities in Sumer, including Ur, Lagash, Adab, and Umma. By his own accounts, he tore down the walls of the rebellious cities and killed several thousand Sumerian troops while selling thousands more into slavery. In addition, he expelled thousands of non-combatants who were of fighting age from the defeated cities and subjected them to cruel punishments, mass deportations, and hard labor. Documents uncovered from the city of Umma seem to confirm this, as they tell of citizens working and dying in what can only be described as distant labor camps, possibly in Elam. Once the fighting had stopped and the rebellions had been crushed, Rimush stripped many of these cities of their lands and gave them to his supporters. In one of the largest land transactions ever to have been recorded in the history of ancient Mesopotamia, Rimush reorganized approximately 134,000 hectares of prime agricultural property belonging to the cities of Lagash and Umma, and redistributed them to the new Akkadian landholding class that his father Sargon had created. This was extremely significant, because it meant that the people and temple priesthoods of these city-states, after perhaps thousands of years, officially had no claim to their ancestral lands. These extremely productive and lucrative properties would henceforth be run from the distant capital of Agade by men and families loyal to the Akkadian king. Due to its new Akkadian overlords, Sumer was becoming a very different place. However, it wasn't just Sumer that had problems with Rimush's rule. There were Akkadian-speaking cities who were also in open rebellion. One of these was the city of Kazalu on the Euphrates River. You could say that Rimush and his family had some history with it because not long before, the king of Kazalu, a man named Kashtubila, fought against Sargon but was soundly defeated by him. Chronicles tell that this defeat was so devastating for the city that, and I quote, "The birds could not find a place to perch away from the ground." So, it's not surprising that the people of Kazalu had no love for Sargon. And with so many other cities in revolt, they were probably more than willing to try their luck again with Rimush. Unfortunately, they too shared the same fate as the people of Sumer. Rimush marched into Kazalu, and in the battle that followed, reportedly killed 12,000 rebel soldiers, took another 5,000 as slaves, and demolished the city's walls. Akkadian Empire 2, Kazalu 0. Elam and the lands to the east didn't fare much better. A coalition led by the ruler of Marhashi sought to counterbalance Akkadian influence, but Rimush's forces were able to rout them and even capture their commanders, thus bringing Elam back into the Akkadian sphere of influence. The campaign was also very profitable for Rimush and his men. While he brought back a lot of treasure to Agade, he also boasted about giving 30 pounds of gold, 3,600 pounds of copper, and 300 slaves to the holy city of Nippur. Other items of value, such as seashells and mace heads, were inscribed with his name and dedicated to temples in Ur, Kish, Shuruppak, and other places. Like his father Sargon, Rimush was also widely unpopular towards the end of his reign. However, unlike Sargon, Rimush's reign of only 9 years was relatively short. In 2270 BCE, he was assassinated. It's not known exactly who was the culprit. Many people believe that it was his older brother, Manishtushu, who abruptly ascended the throne after Rimush's death. Seen from Manishtushu's point of view, such actions may have been justified because as the older brother, he probably thought that it was his right to rule and not Rimush. Also, constant war was not good for trade and commerce. Sure, Rimush may have awarded large plots of land to his loyalists, but what good is that land if its harvests can't be sold to people because they're being killed and slaughtered by the government? Such constant instability would have been eventually too much for even the most loyal of his Akkadian subjects. Many of the elite may have seen Manishtushu as a better, more stable option than the younger, impulsive, and excessively violent Rimush. Manishtushu became king of the empire in 2269 BCE. Though he had to finish the wars that Rimush had already been engaged in, especially in Elam, the rest of his reign, at least compared to his brother, was relatively peaceful. He claims that he conquered Anshan, and there's evidence that he campaigned in what later on became known as Assyria. But on the whole, he seems to have been content with working to consolidate his hold on the territories that he already possessed. Like his father Sargon, Manishtushu also promoted trade and believed it was one of the main pillars of a successful empire. He's believed to have heavily invested in opening up new trade routes in places as far away as Egypt and Oman. Like his brother Rimush, Manishtushu was also assassinated in some sort of palace conspiracy. He had ruled for 15 years, most of which were relatively good years for the empire. Who was behind his assassination was unknown, but after his death in 2255 BCE, his eldest son, Naram-Sin, also pronounced Naram-Suin, came to the throne. After Sargon, he would possibly be the greatest Akkadian ruler of all time. We'll continue with his story in the next episode. As always, thanks so much for stopping by the channel. I really appreciate it. If you learned something, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time.